This is Singapore Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Lokwe with tonight's top stories. The number of rental households progressing to home ownership is holding steady, but the HDB wants to help more to own their flats. The companies look to alternative sources of energy to fuel their businesses as electricity prices spike. Singapore's foreign minister says the invasion of Ukraine provides an important lesson. He says it is possible to take a stand on the issue without taking sides. The number of households on the public rental scheme that went on to own flats in the past 5 years has largely held steady. About 4,500 renters became homeowners in this period with the help of government assistance. But the Housing and Development Board is taking a step further.
A new set of keys for this family of 5 after 7 years at their previous home. It's the same two-room situation, except this two-room flexi flat is something they can call their own.
都是大概没有什么分别的，就是讲这间是我自己买下来的，跟那边是租的不一样了，这是属于我自己的家了。 那边怎么样住多久还是政府的。
Mr. Bak was able to afford the purchase after receiving about $35,000 in aid under Singapore's Fresh Start housing scheme. It's part of a wider range of scheme and grants that help public rental households afford a home within their means. HDB says nearly 1 in 10 rental households have become homeowners in the past few years. Homeownership is a cornerstone of HDB's public housing program. It's also seen as one way families can achieve upward mobility. But realizing the dream of owning a home also requires a commitment that some low-income households cannot afford. That's why in addition to financial schemes and grants, HDB now also has its home ownership support team. Their job to provide personalized guidance to rental tenants ready to buy flats.
Homeownership is key tenets of our social compact. It provides a sense of stability, security, and also rootedness. As you can see, public housing at its heart is one of our core social policies. It is the foundation on which many other aspects of our lives are built. And our housing policies also help us to tackle social inequality and promote social mobility.
To help them along, the team identifies households that might be ready for home ownership based on income stability and affordability. It then guides them through the process of home buying from start to finish. They have so far identified over 1,000 households since the initiative's launch in 2019, with 1 in 3 of them ready for home ownership in the next year or so.
And companies are looking at alternative sources of energy to fuel their businesses as electricity prices spike. The government has said that measures are in place to help Singaporeans cope with the surge, and more support may be introduced if necessary. Lisha Rodney reports.
24 hours, 7 days a week. That's how hard these pumps are at work at this aquaponics farm. With the rising cost of electricity, Metro Farm is feeling the pinch.
Definitely the ongoing increasing in the electricity does affect our overhead. We've been trying to be competitive in terms of our vegetable price. So I would say we do not have any plan to actually increase our vegetable price.
Second Minister for Trade and Industry Dr. Tan See Ling says the government is monitoring developments in the energy market. If necessary, it will introduce further measures to support those vulnerable to the rising prices. But consumers too must play their part.
We cannot embark and succeed on this journey alone. We urge all consumers to use energy prudently and to adopt energy conservation as a way of life.
Metro Farm, for one, is not leaving anything to chance.
We are actually go into serious talk with the IoT company and the solar company to actually come up with a solution for us farming to actually really reduce the electricity bill.
We do not have a great deal of space, and the space that we have is built up fairly well already. And so this does provide a certain degree of constraint on the ability to put, for example, solar panels in place. But still there are opportunities, and now would be a good time for those to be explored.
Dr. Tan assures that Singapore will keep pressing ahead with its efforts to decarbonize the power sector and push on with its green transition.
Rising fuel prices are delivering a 1-2 punch to both consumers and companies. Higher fuel costs are weighing down on the logistics, manufacturing and construction sectors. And the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises says this will soon ripple through to other industries. Meanwhile, motorists are already feeling the burn. Lisa Rodney again tells us more.
28-year-old Emmanuel Das drives 8 kilometers a day to and from work, but that commute is hitting him where it hurts, in the wallet. Last week, Mr. Das paid $2.75 per litre of petrol, but this week it's costing him 6 cents more each litre. Now he's trying to save what he can when he can.
Prior to this price hike, I usually wouldn't plan my route beforehand, but now given the price is as of such, I would usually plan my route to make sure that I can get to a place in the shortest distance possible. And if I were to take public transport, if it's accessible, or even walk by foot, I will actually do so.
Going by foot, however, isn't an option for this logistics firm. The company has 120 trucks out on the roads every day, delivering goods island-wide. It has seen its diesel costs jump 80% from a year ago.
Much as we don't intend to, we have already sent out emails to notify our customers of our intention to adjust prices. This is due to the hike in globally, so we hope that they will understand. As to how much we will increase, we have yet to come up with any figure. Certainly we would not want to risk our reputation as cost leaders in the market.
The Singapore Logistics Association says this increase in fuel prices makes up a third of companies' operational costs and could still climb. UBTS is hoping to use this price increase as a chance to trade in these trucks for electric vehicles and leverage on government rebates for switching to greener rides.
And still to come, Ukraine makes a fresh attempt to evacuate civilians from the port city of Mariupol. And later, groups of 5 fully vaccinated people can soon dine in at more coffee shops. Singapore's Foreign Affairs Minister Vivian Balakrishnan says it is possible for the city-state to take a stand without taking sides in the Russia-Ukraine situation. He was replying to questions in an interview on Channel 5's News Tonight on why Singapore has taken the rare move of imposing sanctions on Russia.
Some Singaporeans have asked me, why is a tiny city-state like us, 8,000 kilometers from Ukraine, taking such a strong stand? Precisely because we are a small, tiny city-state. A large, powerful neighbor has invaded a weaker, smaller neighbor. This is a dagger to the heart of the norms of international law and the UN Charter. If we don't stand up now, on principle, without taking sides, but to state that there has to be respect for international law, for independence, for sovereignty, and for the territorial integrity of smaller countries, our world that we're going to live in is going to be a very dangerous world. So this is a dangerous precedent. And therefore, it is an existential issue. Therefore, we have to stand up. We have to take a stand on principle and express it clearly, unequivocally.
Now, obviously, a lot of things will change. What impact will Russia's invasion of Ukraine have on world order? And how does Singapore and the larger Asian region navigate this?
Well, it all depends on how this evolves. If this precedent is allowed to stand, then all bets are off. The world order, which has prevailed for 7 decades based on the UN Charter, based on mutual respect for all states, regardless of size, based on respecting territorial integrity, based on every country, every people having the independence to decide their destiny. All that is put to question. And that, as I said, is a world order which is inimical to small states. The next point is that it depends very much on what happens next, whether diplomacy is given a chance. If, and I hope and pray that diplomacy and good sense and goodwill will prevail, restraint will be applied, lives will be saved, then at least we've got a chance to make some kind of recovery. But whatever it is, the impact on the economy, impact on norms, don't underestimate. This is going to be a long-term problem.
Right. And, you know, as you said, a long-term problem requires long-term solutions. How are we going to navigate it again?
Well, as I said, we're not taking sides. We're not getting engaged in the disputes. But what we are saying is that norms do matter. International law matters. Respect for each other's sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity, absolutely essential. And then use international law, use the means for peaceful resolution of disputes. So it's about establishing norms of behavior at state level. And look, actually the stand that we're taking is not really new. In 2014, when Crimea was taken, we also expressed categorically our opposition to that. And I can tell you, I've met Foreign Minister Lavrov several times over the years, and we've been able to have good conversations, sat down, he knows exactly our stand, I express it. It did not stop us from continuing to explore other areas in which our relations could be conducted. So the point is, I'm saying it is possible to take a stand without taking sides. It is possible to construct or reconstruct or repair relations, but to do so in a principled and consistent and reliable way. And actually, that's what makes Singapore relevant, useful, and a partner that people take seriously. I'm very glad that we are not alone. If you look at what happened in the UN General Assembly just 2 days ago, 141 countries voted just the way we did, to deplore the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. So I still hope, I guess as a diplomat you have to be optimistic and you have to keep trying.
I want to bring you closer to home. It's been frustratingly little progress in the area of Myanmar, particularly on that 5-point consensus 1 year on. So I'm wondering, what more should ASEAN or what more could ASEAN do to move this process forward?
Let me be very frank. I'm very, very disappointed. This is a tragedy. We all have friends from Myanmar, and we know how disappointed, how their hopes have been dashed. We still believe in the 5-point consensus, which was arrived at by our leaders in April last year. And I still hope that the military authorities will abide by this. We have a planned visit by the special envoy later this month. I hope he will be given access to all parties. When you have a deep-seated, difficult problem like this, the use of force is never a long-term solution. At the end of the day, you're going to need reconciliation, honest discussion, face-to-face meetings, and to the extent that ASEAN can play a facilitative role to mediate what I hope will be a fairer and sustainable and constructive outcome for the people of Myanmar, I hope dearly that we achieve that. But I am also realistic enough to tell you that I think this will take a long time. There are no quick and easy answers.
Understand. Now, in the interest of time, I did want to also get in a question on Malaysia and how you would characterize our relations with Malaysia, particularly post-COVID. Where are we, well, doing well? What do we do well together? And where do we really need to work on it a little bit more?
I would say our relations are excellent. During COVID, we have proven to each other that we've been absolutely reliable partners. We made sure supply chains didn't go down. We looked after each other's people, both in terms of evacuation, in terms of taking care and enabling families to get together when they need to. Now, if you look at the epidemiology curves in both Malaysia and Singapore, I think it's a matter of time that we can look forward to the reopening, both the Causeway and Tuas. So I suppose in Malay, I would say akan datang.
Ukraine is making another attempt to evacuate the besieged city of Mariupol. Local officials say residents will be allowed to leave via evacuation routes, but it's unclear if fighting has stopped in the region. Yesterday's ceasefire collapsed, scuppered by Russian shelling along agreed evacuation routes. Russian forces are advancing in southern Ukraine. They have so far overrun Kherson and targeted Mariupol with repeated airstrikes. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky believes Russian troops are now advancing on Odessa on the Black Sea coast. Relentless attacks also reported in Kharkiv and near the capital. The city of Irpin, just outside of Kiev, has been the target of multiple strikes. The region has found itself on the front line between Russian and Ukrainian forces. As President Zelensky renewed calls for a no-fly zone over Ukraine, President Putin escalated warnings against NATO. He's threatened a wider war if a no-fly zone is set up. He's also warned Ukraine that its statehood is in jeopardy if it keeps up its resistance. And live now to Singapore and Ixchen. He has been living in Kiev for the past 4 months with his Ukrainian wife. Mr. Shen, 11 days since this invasion, and we have been speaking to you since February the 25th, last Friday. And all this time you have said you have been holding up by trying to establish normality, routine, despite a clearly abnormal situation. I was wondering, are there any days, night or day, when this feeling of normality slips and you feel really bad? And what do you do then?
Unfortunately, this day has not arrived. Like this morning, there was those intensive artillery exchange of fire. I cannot identify which side was firing which side, but I can hear it in the north of the city. It was intense, and it lasted for nearly about 1.5 hours. This is where for me personally, it's the first time I experienced what is it like to be shell shocked. Fortunately for me, it wasn't a direct attack on where I was living. But if you ask me, this is where it's a test. When you constantly feel that the loud explosion, you can feel that the vibration as it passes through the air and the ground. You have two choices, right? You can tuck your head and then you live in the paranoia, or you can just accept that the longevity has already been predestined. Then whatever you left of this life is what you want to do with it, and you just go on making the best out of whatever that this life is.
I suppose part of making the best of a very difficult situation is securing food, water, and you were telling me earlier that supplies of fresh stuff, for example, meat, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, that has been fallen a little short in the last few days, although it has improved in the last 1-2 days. How challenging has it been for you to get enough supplies, not just for today, but looking ahead, things that you will need, say, next week, next month?
But we're still well stocked. For next week, even if I'm unable to resupply, we're still well stocked. But for next month, then we'll probably have to start rationing with our current supply. Like this morning, when I went to the supermarket, when the curfew has been lifted, I saw new supply of fresh fruits. The vegetables, fresh vegetables, meat and fish hasn't arrived, but from the delivery of fresh fruits, I know that at least this logistic chain has not been disrupted.
There's good news for that. Singapore and Ixchen speaking to us there from Kiev, Ukraine. And still to come, ensuring only the best in foreign talent arrives in Singapore. Plus, how residents in the Southwest District offered support to thousands of vulnerable households. Groups of 5 fully vaccinated people can soon dine in at more coffee shops and similar eateries thanks to new options. The Singapore Food Agency says these will help operators who find it difficult to implement vaccination checks due to manpower constraints. Only about 7% of coffee shops and canteens accommodate groups of 5 since they were allowed to do so more than 3 months ago. From tomorrow, operators can either host them in a cordoned-off area or have them on the entire premises, but only between 5 and 10:30 p.m. They can also do both, provide a dedicated area that only allows groups of 5 during the 5 to 10:30 p.m. window. International business chambers here have welcomed an upcoming points-based framework for foreign professionals. They say it would mean only the best arrive while Singapore remains competitive. Under the Compass framework, employment pass applicants must rack up 40 points across 4 foundational criteria: a salary, qualifications, diversity, and the hiring firm's track record in engaging locals. The American Chamber of Commerce, Singapore, which has 5,000 members, says the transparency offered by the framework will make it easier for companies to plan long-term or to set up shop here. However, it's hoping that the government can be flexible on qualifications due to evolving educational backgrounds.
So it is possible, let's say, in very specialized areas, law and medicine, healthcare, that we will need to look at a variety of different educational backgrounds in order to meet meet the workforce demands. Those are very specialized. But if we then look at other areas, let's say public relations, like strategic consultancies, I'd say sometimes that qualifications aside from education will be important to consider.
The British Chamber of Commerce, which represents 3,500 businesses, says bringing in the best foreign workers will ensure skills are transferred to the local talent pool. But in the short term, the cost of hiring foreigners will go up due to previously announced higher EP qualifying salaries. 7,500 vulnerable households in the Southwest District have benefited from an annual program that rallies the community to spread cheer to less well-off residents. This year's Festive Cheers at Southwest program received donations of more than $677,000. It took place across a 3-month period involving more than 1,000 volunteers and more than 90 community and corporate partners. That's Singapore Tonight. Don't forget headlines anytime at cna.asia. Plus, we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Good night.